Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a few tips and tricks for getting through NaNoWriMo. At this point, you're about halfway through NaNoWriMo, and one of the most important things in NaNoWriMo is to just keep going. You need to keep producing. And the further you get into NaNoWriMo, the more you lose that initial spark of like, I can do this, just keep writing. And you start to hit the wall because you've been going so hard for so long that you've kind of gotten beyond the point of where you had a really clear vision of what you wanted to do. I've written a lot and I've had a lot of very long writing periods. I know what it's like to do this marathon. And so I just wanted to share a few of the tricks that I use when I hit kind of like a writer's block or have difficulty just keeping the flow going. NaNoWriMo is in many ways a social experience, but you need to figure out with yourself how social you ought to be. Who are you as a person? How much does it affect you to be on the social media? If you see that somebody else already crammed out 2,000 words in barely an hour, is that going to make you feel down on yourself? Or is that going to make you feel like, oh, I need to catch up with this person? Because if you're the latter, go on social media. If you're the former, it may be better for you to just decide a specific time, a day or week, when you're going to keep updated with what everyone else are doing. Of course, keep updating your NaNoWriMo word count. That's part of the thing that keeps you going, and it's part of the fun to see that word count rising. But figure out what level of use in social media works for you. So sometimes when you get to these parts where it feels really hard to keep going and you're like, I don't know what to write here, or like, I have an idea of what to write, but I don't know the words that are best to use here. And you really, sometimes as you're writing, you really just want to get it right? But the first draft is a first draft. You're just supposed to get things out on the page so that you can work with it later. Trust me, it's so much better to have bad words to work with than none. I have been there where you like skip ahead and are like, I leave a scene for future me. And this can be the right choice sometimes, but if you're leaving whole sections for your future self, chances are it won't work out well, because then when you get there in your editing process, you're going to be like, what the heck am I supposed to do here? And you're out of the project, right? You're in a different mindset. So getting back to that mindset of creation can be very difficult. For some people, it works to jump around and not do it chronologically. But typically they're gonna get back to that point at some point during their writing process. But in order to avoid just skipping ahead and avoiding writing a scene, what I recommend is to simply create a blank line. Like, you have written to the point where you're like, yeah, I know what is going on here and what needs to happen. And then you get to this part where you're not entirely sure. Create a blank space and just keep writing. What that blank space does is that it tells your mind that I'm going to get back to this. I have to edit this because the blank line does not belong there. You're kind of telling your brain that the following does not go into the story. The following is not the final result. And suddenly it's okay to be bad. Along the same lines, I sometimes will make a blank line and then I will just write, this sucks, or the following is just bullshit, but now I'm just gonna write it. And what actually very often happens is that it's usable, what I end up writing, and I can just delete the blank space and delete the curse words, and it can actually work out quite well. And even if it doesn't, you can use this method just to keep going. Another method along the same lines is to change up the time you're writing in, the point of view. So if you're, for instance, writing first person, present tense, go to another tense or pick a third person. This helps because now you're really saying to your brain, this is not the final result. But you can still end up writing good prose and figuring out what's going to happen in the story. Similarly, you can open up another document. Again, all of these little tips help your brain let go of this idea that it has to perform. You get into this sense of playfulness and just that you're exploring instead of creating a final result. So open up a new document and just discuss with yourself what's going to happen now. I think it would be really cool if blah, 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 and just keep going, because then eventually you're going to be like, oh, and then he says this, and blah, 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 blah. And of course, it doesn't exactly write out as the scene would. But then when you put it over back into your real manuscript document, it often actually works quite well. You just need to change things up a little bit, and then you actually have something that works. Another thing I would say is that you need to... This may sound daunting, especially if you're new to NaNoWriMo. If you're not that fast a writer yet, it can seem daunting to go down a wrong direction and write a bunch of words that are going to be deleted later. But very often, it's better to try out different paths than to stop and think too much. I often do this, and I forget, for instance, if I'm editing and I have done a scene and I'm thinking about an alternative way things could happen, I will spend a lot of time thinking about whether or not I need to discard the scene instead of just writing the alternative scene, and then I can look at them together and decide what I want to do. And writing the alternative and going down different idea paths can be a really great way to inform your decision on which route to go. And even if you end up not using something, it still can strengthen your other stuff. And even as you're writing it, you can discover new things that you can then use in the main manuscript. So the key is to just keep going, keep trusting that getting something on the page is better than having nothing. And try to shut off that voice in your head that says like, this is really, really bad, this is bad, this is bad. Because very often it's not as bad as you imagine. And honestly, if it's very bad, you can laugh at it later. It's going to be a great story. So just keep going, and I hope you all finish NaNoWriMo, and good luck.